to deal with victims. Because when disaster strikes, there's no red, purple, blue. We are all Americans, and the federal government must deploy all the federal assets to help people recover. That wasn't the experience with
We're continuing our look at the December 16th, 2025 House Small Business Committee hearing titled American Resilience, Examining the SBA Disaster Assistance Program. In this segment, the focus sharpens on accountability, staffing levels, forecasting accuracy, and lessons from past disasters. The questioner is Ranking Member Nydia Velasquez, the longtime Democrat from New York's 7th District and a veteran of the committee, known for her fierce oversight of the Small Business Administration, especially on disaster recovery and economic relief programs. She's questioning Chris Stallings, the Associate Administrator for Disaster Recovery and Resilience at the SBA, and the exchange reveals real tensions about whether the agency is prepared for an era of escalating disasters. If you value this kind of detailed, no-spin reporting that helps you understand the bigger picture, please subscribe now and turn on notifications. It keeps us going
Thank
strong.
you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Stallings. It's great to hear your comments about using a human touch to deal with victims. Because when disaster strikes, there's no red, purple, blue. We are all Americans, and the federal government must deploy all the federal assets to help people recover. That wasn't the experience with Puerto Rico under Donald Trump when money was withheld for 3 years. Still, Puerto Rico hasn't been able to upgrade the power grid. In fact, if there is a Category 1 hurricane, the power grid will collapse. And I echo the sentiment of Mr. Trump from California. You know, to say that we're going to withhold federal resources at a time when people are going through very distressful emotions, it just beneath any office, public office that you hold. Mr. Stallings, in the wake of last year's lapse in disaster appropriations, the OIG determined that SBA's forecasting methodology hasn't been updated in 15 years. This has resulted in routine projections of $1.1 billion disaster lending each year, despite steadily increasing disaster costs and credit subsidy rates. Mr. Stallings, in response to that report, the SBA told the OIG a new methodology has already been implemented. Was that new methodology used for the appropriation request made in May?
Yes, ma'am. We're starting
Okay. Yes. So what assumptions were used to determine the $143 million?
So what we did is we brought in our CFO and economist. We also brought in meteorological partners to give us analog years so we could look at what years we could expect. We pulled last 10-year averages. We also allowed subject matter experts to look into what trends look like, so cost of construction, cost of rebuild, and started formulating that into our plan as well. So we looked at all aspects of what disasters cost. So the analog year through your meteorology forecast might look like a 2002 year, but obviously cost of 2002 aren't the same. Okay. So we adjusted for inflation, and we use that in our program.
Thank you. And you mentioned in your testimony that you continue to strengthen the capacity of the Disaster Processing and Disbursement Center. But monthly reports show that the office staffing has decreased 45% from 1,207 employees last December to 667 in November. So what steps are you taking to strengthen it?
So we've just went through a process of recognizing position descriptions, PDs, if you will. We've started reevaluating those, making sure that the the job descriptions and the employees that we have do more than just one job. So just because we had a bunch of folks didn't mean necessarily we had a lot of stuff going on.
Okay. So the administrator intends to cut the SBA workforce by 47%. Have staff cuts affected loan processing related to disaster loan?
Absolutely not. As I said in my opening statement, we've reduced the time. We've actually got the money out faster.
With less?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, we will see the next disaster that you might face, that we might face in the nation, to see if a cut of 47% is the right way to go. I yield back.
Velasquez begins by commending Stallings for stressing a human touch in dealing with disaster victims, a point that resonates deeply because when calamity strikes, politics fade away. There's no red, purple, or blue, she says, just Americans who need help recovering. The federal government has an obligation to bring every available resource to bear. But she doesn't let that platitude stand alone. She immediately contrasts it with real history. She references Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria in 2017 during Donald Trump's first term, when federal aid was delayed and withheld for years due to bureaucratic and political hurdles. Even now, well into 2025, the island's power grid hasn't been fully modernized, remains vulnerable to even a Category 1 hurricane, and could collapse again under moderate stress. Velasquez also nods to recent criticisms from California leaders who have pushed back against any suggestion of withholding federal resources during wildfires or other emergencies, arguing that such threats are beneath the dignity of public office when people are already in emotional distress and fighting to rebuild. This sets up her core line of questioning about the SBA's own readiness. She cites a finding from the SBA's Office of Inspector General following a lapse in disaster appropriations the previous year. The OIG concluded that the agency's forecasting methodology for disaster lending hadn't been updated in 15 years, leading to consistently lowball projections of around $1.1 billion annually in disaster loans, even as actual disaster costs and credit subsidy rates have risen sharply with more frequent severe events, higher rebuild expenses, and inflation. In response to that OIG report, the SBA stated it had already rolled out a new methodology. Velasquez asks directly, was that updated approach used for the SBA's May appropriation request, which requested only $143 million? Stallings affirms yes, and he walks through the process. The team brought in their CFO and economists, partnered with meteorologists for analog years to benchmark expectations, reviewed 10-year averages, consulted subject matter experts on emerging trends, factored in escalating costs of construction and rebuilding, and adjusted everything for inflation. Stallings explains they've undertaken a thorough review of position descriptions, re-evaluating roles to ensure employees are cross-trained and can handle multiple responsibilities. The idea is that having more people didn't always translate to more output if roles were siloed. The focus now is on versatility and efficiency. Humanizing the stakes, consider a family-owned restaurant in upstate New York flooded out, or a Puerto Rican small business still recovering from grid failures years later. Delays in loans mean missed payrolls, lost inventory, and shuttered doors. When Velasquez invokes Puerto Rico, she's reminding everyone that federal response failures have long-lasting human costs, communities left in the dark, economies stunted, trust in government damaged. The same worries apply now, with staffing reductions and conservative budgets potentially leaving gaps when the next hurricane, wildfire season, or widespread flooding hits. Viewers can take practical steps. Familiarize yourself with SBA disaster resources at sba.gov/disaster, apply early if eligible, and advocate with your representatives for adequate funding. Disasters don't discriminate by party or geography, so bipartisan oversight like this hearing keeps pressure on agencies to deliver when it counts. Thanks for joining us on this breakdown of a critical hearing moment. If it opened your eyes to the mechanics and risks of disaster aid, subscribe now, share your thoughts in the comments, and what concerns you most about these workforce cuts. We'll keep covering these issues. Stay safe out there, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.